Hello, welcome to the Living Organization CEO Insights podcast. My name is Vitaliy Geyman, and today I have Vlad Bogin. He's the CEO of Cromos Pharma, which is a contract research organization. I said it right because CRO means many things. Welcome, Vlad.
Thank you. Thank you, Vitaliy. Nice to meet you.
Very good to meet you. We were just already chatting, as we always do before the podcast, about the challenges and opportunities of running such a complex organization in the pharma industry. Maybe give us a couple of minute overview of what's going on in the pharma industry, particularly in the contract research world.
All right. So it is a very dynamic field. There are a lot of players of different sizes. There are some mega players that are multi-billion-dollar corporations, and then there are mid-sized organizations, sort of like us, and they also vary in size from several hundred people to thousands of people. And the way it works is that I think pharma and biotech industries have figured out that it's more economical and efficient to outsource clinical development to the organizations that live and breathe that day to day. And so this has been an ongoing trend for now 30, 40 years, and the field has been growing. There's been some changes, a lot of consolidation, a lot of buyouts. So there are fewer of us that are independent and are still running our own businesses. But it is a very challenging, interesting occupation, so to speak. I started this company 20 years ago, and we've been organically growing it over this period of time. We're both US and what we call ex-US, with our outside of US activities are in Central and Eastern Europe, in Turkey, in Central Asia. And what we deliver is usually faster recruitment, which is critical to biotech and pharma. By faster recruitment, I mean getting patients into clinical trials quicker, because time is money for the biotechs and for the pharma companies. Some estimate that for an approved drug, a delay of a week of that approval can mean millions of dollars. So, and for biotech companies, clearly getting to the next inflection point faster and more economically is critical. That means the next round of funding, that means stock price, et cetera, et cetera. So with sort of the cooling off of the biotech investment market, I think our value proposition has actually become much more enticing. It's resonating significantly better especially with biotech companies. Although now we see that even mid-size and big pharma are starting to count money a little more carefully. So in a nutshell, this is what we do. The way we do it is also changing. There's a lot of technology coming into clinical research. There's more and more emphasis on doing remote work, meaning instead of physically being present in clinics, hospitals, we can audit them, so to speak, remotely. We can use AI to figure out the outliers and really target the centers, the physicians that are maybe underperforming, instead of kind of blanket monitoring everybody. It's called risk-based monitoring. So that is changing. A lot of emphasis on something we call real-world evidence, where you can actually extract data from electronic medical records, do some really what we call virtual clinical trials. They may not have the same power, the same impact, but for certain indications and for certain purposes, it's really, really meaningful to what we call find the signal of a certain medication, of identifying that need and so forth. Go ahead.
No, thank you, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of technology change. I wanted to kind of steer you in a slightly different direction because my
Sure.
audience are less technical, and they kind of like they don't know what they're probably thinking is, okay, this guy started this business and now he's got 200 people. You didn't mention it, but you did mention it before. How is he managing all this remote team? Because a lot of my CEOs are, some of my younger CEOs, but then they have companies of 50, 100, 200, sometimes 500 people. And they're like you, they're spread throughout different 5, 6 countries, and they don't even know who is working for them half of the time, yet alone try to manage them. How are you managing this remote working conditions?
Good question. I mean, I think COVID has changed how we operate. Remote work has become much more in vogue and much more accepted. I still believe that personal communication, face-to-face communication is critical, but I think we're more adjusted to, sitting in completely different time zones and completely on different continents and discussing things. But I think the most critical aspect for an international business is really hiring stakeholders in each geography that can lead local teams that are enthusiastic, proficient, that are team builders, and it makes life so much easier. And it's a hit or miss. You're not always right when you hire somebody, but we've been lucky. And we've had some tremendous success with local offices and their leaders. And you try to sort of create an environment of harmonization between different offices. And as I mentioned to you, we're in different cultural sort of milieus. You take North America, you take Central Eastern Europe, you take Turkey, and so it's another aspect that is critical is having a very good HR, that really listens to people, understands the differences. Sometimes even the way we present the data or present a problem can be misconstrued into, a potential affront, and being able to work through this is critical. Is absolutely critical.
Okay, let's speak some of that because I want to go one level deeper. We hear all that. Have a good HR, have a good local. And that's where we can. I mean, it's really important. But what does it really mean? So let's say you're hiring a person for your Turkish office. Actually, Turkish offices. We picked a country that's really difficult to hire. I used to work with Turkish people.
Right.
I love them to death, and like, oh my God, like like the kind of things they pull on me was almost like on that Turkish soap opera. It's
I've
like,
never seen it, but
oh, you haven't seen him? Like,
I know. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
right. So here is a culture that says one thing, often does that, or we misunderstand the cues. A yes means no, a no means maybe. All of that, and right. And we have a Western paradigm of what we think is a commitment, and that commitment is have boundaries of about 100% either way. Sometimes, or at least it's anyway. There are cultural miscommunication. There are personal, and there is distance that we can't communicate. Given this, right? I mean, yeah, okay, we have HR, but that my HR is not in Turkey. Our HR is in headquarters, right? So
Right.
what do you do when we just ask this guy, or say we recruited him, and we have a project and he's not delivering? It's just not happening. Like, how do we communicate the importance? How do we fix the situation usually?
Well, in our case, it was not a guy; it was a lady,
Okay.
and it wasn't our first attempt. We failed initially.
Yeah.
Was definitely not a fit, but you go through references like crazy.
Okay. So references.
You try and get as much external information about the person as possible. When I look at the CV, if I see that there's been changes every year or 2 years, this is a tremendous red flag for me. Somebody who's been jumping from place to place, obviously. In our field, we're dealing with sophisticated, very highly educated people, right? Mostly physicians or scientists, PhDs. So there's definitely a slightly different level of communication, and there's more transparency, I would say. Again, not to sort of put down any other specialty, but
Yeah, I understand.
those are
Yeah,
highly trained,
they're more educated,
very
right? Yeah.
more educated, and also, in our field, it's, people that have endured a lot of stress can work through, really difficult tasks.
Okay.
I am a physician, so I've, had a ton of sleepless nights, and so
Okay.
I know how to deal with this.
Yeah.
And so as I was saying, in our field, it's easy to get references from external stakeholders, meaning I can get references from somebody in Europe that worked with that person in Turkey,
Okay. So,
or worked with that person in Serbia, worked with this person in Kazakhstan, whatever the location is. And I think it definitely helps me
okay.
sort of weed out, problems or potential problems.
Okay.
But still, I mean, the cultural issue is still there. I'll tell you, contract negotiations are sort of like going to Turkish bazaar,
That's right. Haggling.
I mean, they don't haggle, but when you see the for instance, initial offering from their end, you're like, whoa, and then you realize that,
just a game.
we can talk about it, we can discuss it. Unlike, let's say, North America, where you maybe have a little bit of wiggle room, but not really, right? So it's interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, it's challenging, but it's also super exciting.
It's fun. Exactly. The other part of it, because I teach remote management for IT and tech companies, right? And one of the things, and you tell me if I'm wrong. The reason things go wrong is because when we say something, it doesn't mean they understand what we say. Even though we say the same words, I'll tell you, this is what the contract means to me. And you go, yeah, I get it. And then you find out, no, it means a completely different thing to or whatever. This is my deliverable by this date. And I go, yeah, this date plus or minus 3 days. I go, no, not plus or minus 3 days. This date. Well, I can't conceive that in my culture. So we always give plus or minus 3 days, because there is
no.
all of that, right?
I hear you. I see this. Again, we're in a more controlled field,
You in,
although IT is also pretty controlled field. But because we deal with sponsors, we call them sponsors, biotech companies and pharma companies, where everything is very much structured.
Right.
Have those Gantt charts that define when things should start, when things should end. So there's less of that in my field, but still, it's there's more laxity in certain regions. Go ahead.
So what is it then? Okay, so if in your case, you have scientifically minded people, the precisions are good. What is it that is the weakness? Well, one of the things that actually, I'll be honest with you, I have an inside information in your field because I have a few people working in a lot of pharma companies. Is that they are very good at what they do. But they're also always looking for another job or another. And so to keep really qualified staff maybe also an issue, right? Like, well, you hire them and you train them maybe even, but then they're also looking for other jobs, right? So is that an issue? Or if it's not, what is the issue of managing remote stuff? Because they're not close to you. They're kind of like on a satellite. So what's coming up? How do you keep them? How do you retain them? How do you engage them? What's the issue in that area?
No, absolutely good point. Retention rate is low in the industry as a whole. We, again, not to self-promote, but we've been able to maintain low turnover rate. Our turnover rate is probably around 5-6% per annum.
Okay.
This
So what's
low.
your secret? What's the secret there?
Well, we try to create a conducive environment, right? Seriously, we have a ton of webinars. We have, when somebody's getting onboarded, we have a buddy system where they have actually a new friend that actually guides them through all the processes, and, picks up the phone anytime they have a question, and just overall general attitude within the company. Again, I'm obviously subjective, right? But I think we've created somewhat of a friendly environment where people feel that they are needed, that they are valued. Obviously, the money is always, a major component of this. But, if there's a difference of 5–10%, and that you were miserable in your previous job, and now you're appreciated, you're not yelled at, you are, treated as a human being, as a professional, it changes the paradigm. It changes the paradigm. It's still there's brain drain, and this field is very competitive, and the costs are going up. But we manage.
Yeah.
And it is a major hit, like in any industry. In our industry, it's very severe, because by the time they get trained on our SOPs, by the time they get fully onboarded, understand the structure, the culture, and then leave 6 months later, that 6 months essentially is lost completely.
That's a few $100,000 for you, right?
It's not just several $1,000s or whatever, $100,000. It's also the time spent. The time
to recruit
the
again.
team spends with them, the time that they spend on trainings, etc., etc. So obviously, I don't think I've mastered the sort of art of always finding the right people. It's so difficult. Some people are exceptional at interviews, and then you realize that's essentially all they are good for.
A great salesperson.
Right. But then there's some people that are, they don't look as impressive initially, but then you start asking around, and you get those tremendous feedbacks, and you go, okay, well, let's take another look. So it's hard. And, I've been burnt more times than I wish to admit, so.
Yeah, thank you for the wisdom, and I totally understand. It's an art and a science and a lot of luck, right? Just sometimes you just luck out with people.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I want to thank you.
Sometimes unexpected, right? Sometimes you feel like, let's give it a shot, and you're like, whoa, that worked out very well.
I find a diamond, a rough diamond, right?
Exactly.
Well, Vlad, thank you so much. I want to thank you for being open and honest, and telling us about your secrets, about and I think the more we share with other people, the more actually it is more attractive to share things than hold back. And that's probably why you're a great company, because you are transparent as a company.
We try to be, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely try to be. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.